Jeff Fisher has only been coaching the St. Louis Rams for 2 regular season games, but already it seems as though he's had an effect. Rams look nothing like the team that went 2-14 last year. They've been very competitive these first 2 weeks of the season. Almost won a road game in Detroit in week 1. Lions had to score with 11 seconds left to win that game, and they did upset the Washington Redskins last week. So they now sit at 1-1, which is the same record as this week's opponent, Chicago Bears. Chicago also at 1-1. This game is in Chicago. Bears installed as a 9-point favorite on BETDAQ right now. Total not out on BETDAQ just yet. 44.5, the total out in Vegas. I'm sure it'll be somewhere in that neighborhood on BETDAQ. Now, if you remove the past from it, if you hadn't seen either one of these teams play until this season, you would say that maybe this line's a little out of whack here. Chicago being a 9-point favorite after the Bears were humiliated by Green Bay last week on national television in the Thursday night game. Now, Jay Cutler, what do you say about this guy? You know, Jay Cutler has been accused of being heartless or gutless throughout his career, really, especially that playoff game the year before last when he seemed to stand on the sidelines with a relatively minor injury, was not very into the game. His behavior, what he said throughout the years in press conferences, his seeming nonchalance when he struggles or plays poorly, which he does frequently. This is a guy with all the talent in the world, but propensity for throwing interceptions. And he showed last week, sometimes when things start get snowballing in the wrong direction, you know, Jay Cutler's the type of guy who will hang his head and, you know, keep things going. He won't be able to turn things around. Not a high character guy, doesn't seem like a real leader. And you don't hear a whole lot of teammates speaking up to defend him. And that's understandable based on the way he seems to treat his teammates. Don't know if you saw that game last week. Cutler just yelling at Jamarcus Webb, left tackle. I mean, Jamarcus Webb obviously a much bigger man than Cutler. Cutler yelling, screaming at him, and then when Jamarcus Webb sort of stood in his way on the way to the sideline, Cutler shoved him aside. Unusual behavior, publicly embarrassing a teammate like that. And it's not like, Cutler's some great Super Bowl winning quarterback. This guy throws interceptions all the time. Charles Woodson, Packers defensive back, said it best after the game, said he might have more weapons, but it's same old Jay. He's going to throw us a couple. And he's exactly right. Now, next time Cutler throws an interception, I wonder if Jamarcus Webb's going to turn around and get right in his face and say, hey, I'm busting my butt blocking for you. The least you can do is throw it to our own team. So anyway, some turmoil going on right now with the Chicago Bears team. However, can't lose sight of the fact they do seem to have more talent than the St. Louis Rams, and they showed in week 1 they can put up big points on a bad defense. Now, a lot of people would say they faced a bad defense again last week. The Green Bay Packers ranked 32nd in the league last year in total defense, and they did not look very good against a conservative, let's say, or offense that is known to be conservative in the San Francisco 49ers in week 1. The Packers sort of got run over and pushed around by that 49ers offense. Looked like a different unit entirely last week. So was that the Packers defense just improving so much last week? Did the Bears offense take a giant step back? A little bit of both. Certainly in week 1 against the Indianapolis Colts, the Bears hung 40 points on the Colts, showcasing their offseason addition, their major offseason addition, wide receiver Brandon Marshall. Brought him over in free agency from the Miami Dolphins. He and Cutler, of course, played together in Denver, so they had a rapport, and it was on full display in week 1 against Indianapolis. They did not get it going last week. Marshall did not catch a pass until very late in that game, but nothing was working, and nobody got it going last week on offense for the Chicago Bears. Now, you'd expect them to play better this week against St. Louis. You would say, well, now they're facing St. Louis, but is St. Louis's defense any worse than Green Bay's? The Rams' defense isn't necessarily stout. They gave up a lot of yards last week to Washington, but they played pretty well in week 1 against Detroit, and I'll repeat, Green Bay was the worst defense in the league last year. So, I think the general consensus and the feeling is Chicago is going to sort of get it together here and blow out the Rams. People think sort of, patting the Rams on the head, say it's been a nice 2 weeks of being competitive, but your talent level and Chicago's talent level and the fact that this game is in Chicago and the Bears should be plenty motivated after their last performance. The Bears might win this game big, but I caution against that type of thinking. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to back the Rams this week. Certainly haven't made any decisions, but I've said it a couple times over the last couple of weeks, and I'll say it again. A lot of times early in the season like this, we NFL bettors are too influenced by what happened last season. Every year in the NFL, there's so much parity in the NFL. We always see worst to first teams, and a lot of times we fail to recognize that these teams who are traditionally bad, and we expect them to be bad again this year, maybe they're just not the team we think they are. Maybe they're just better than we think they are. 49ers, a golden example of that last year, San Francisco 49ers. Everybody expected them to be bad coming into the season. They did have a new coach in Jim Harbaugh, but many of the same players, that same old personnel, Alex Smith, we had felt like we'd seen that movie before. And so when they got off to a good start of the season, really the betting public, odds makers, really people didn't buy in. As a result, the 49ers in the first 10 games of last season were 9-0-1 against the number, an absolute cash register. And so watch for teams, teams like St. Louis, teams like Tampa Bay, teams who are expected to be bad this year, who have played well the first couple of weeks of the season. There's going to be one team like this that emerges in 10 or 12 weeks. We're going to look back and say, wow, that spread early in the season was really out of whack based on what we know about these teams now. So I'd be very careful about taking the home team here, the Chicago Bears, and laying that 9 points. That being said, not sure if I'm going to back St. Louis either. I mean, I do have belief in Chicago. I backed them in week 1 against Indianapolis. They have talent on this team, not only Brandon Marshall, but I really like rookie wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey and the running back tandem that now they have with Matt Forte and Michael Bush, about as good as there is in the league. But Jay Cutler, the big question mark here, sort of seemed to show his true colors again last week. I don't like trusting Cutler with my money, and so I'm not trusting him with my money this week. If you're going to go ahead and make that leap, best of luck to you.